So what can you explain to the audience what the Wise Journal does?
When you actually go on to that person's story, it will actually kick in with the sound of a song they chose, or a piece of music, classical, pop, opera, it doesn't matter, something that actually they felt presents their personality in sound. And this particular one that I just clicked on was June Close, who you will have known in your lifetime. And she was born in 57 and died in 2020. And this tells a story about what she went through and how she fought it, and how she overcome and remained who she was and presented her own strengths and personality through the last part of life. And even in the end was strong enough to not only design and organize her own funeral, but her brother's as well. So these are remarkable stories about remarkable people, and anybody who is watching or is involved with people who are over 70 and have a life that presents where they've had problems. It doesn't matter what those problems were, but they actually got over them. These are a testament to the qualities of individuals who have who are presented with their own wars, and they actually find ways to overcome them. And that's a signal to all young people that the old people that they see are not just, you know, an old wrinkly face. There's a story behind every one. And the more you look at those, in fact, if you look at the journal, there's one there with a young fella, I think, Tom Wilkinson. If you look at his face, and this is his music again. When you scroll down, you'll probably recognize Tom Wilkinson. He died last year, and in December. And he's best known for a number of things like the Full Monty and the Best Marigold Hotel. But Tom was a wonderful man. He actually said things that really resonated in my heart. You should never do things just for money. There's got to be something about what you do that you really want to do. And in his case, he said, I wouldn't do a job if I think I couldn't do it the very best I could. And so, you know, that's somebody with ethics. And that's what the journal is about. It's about respecting those people and celebrating the numbers of people who come forward who we'd love to celebrate with their family. If you know anybody and you want them in the journal, I'll be very pleased to edit it for you. You can ring me even, and I'll tape what you say and I'll edit it and send it back. You only need to send a couple of photographs, and the rest is down to Wise. But there we are. Sorry, that was a long answer to a small question.
And what happens, James, if someone, you know, like not everybody wants to put things in writing. So is there a way that someone can do a voicemail or something? How does that work?
Yeah, what does happen, and I'm just doing one tomorrow actually, is I will take a phone call and I will record the answers on the phone.
Right.
And then I will actually offer that to Apple Write, so that it'll write it AI for me, and then I'll edit it so it's got a rhythm and it works with the journal. But before I publish it, I always have to have it approved by the person who suggested it in the first place. Now, we've got a number of people who, yourself and Dee, who have presented people, and the amount of views we've had on those people of the particular element in the Wise Journal has been colossal. When they go on, by the way, we send a certificate out to say so, and that certificate is published on LinkedIn, social media, and it invites people to look at that particular write-up, that particular entry, and that's when the visits to the WISE website go through the roof. So it tells you a lot about people's interest in recording the lives of people they care about, and I think that's hugely important, and a responsibility of the site too, to not talk about generic groups of people, of the elderly, but also about individuals that matter to each one of us.
You've said about the entries going in, you've said about the certificates being posted on social media. A big component on the website is the Learning Centre. So how does that work? I know there's two. You've got your journal and then you've got the Learning Centre, haven't you?
Well, of course, when people look at this website, they come from different communities. And obviously, people in education are really very interested in finding out what's in it for them. And I think the whole invitation was what's in it for you. And for education, there is something where we can provide a little bit of innovation using the arts to help people understand what can happen to people who are vulnerable, particularly when they're elderly. And if we go to the Learning Centre, the first thing that comes up is a script of a play called Migrant, which we commissioned. For the website, and what it does, it actually, just underneath it, there is a lesson plan. If you click on the page of the play, it'll open up the complete script, and you can download that as a school. You can use all or part of it totally free, and you can also upload underneath a lesson plan. And bear in mind that the PSHE change is through the Children's and Social Care Act in 2010, made it a required subject in the curriculum. That personal health and social and economics was part of whatever was taught in a school. Now, what this does, it actually introduces what can happen to your nan, your grandma, your grandpa, people who you take for granted, who you never see, who live at home, do a bit on the allotment now and again, and by the way, your nan's in a care home because that's where her needs are met. And this particular play is about a young lady, a young granddaughter who goes to visit her nan in a care home, and she finds that she's got a black eye, and what she does about it. And it was the actual play itself was written by a young up and coming actress, director, producer. She's appeared in Coronation Street. She's actually got 2 movies on the go at the moment, and you can click on an article about her underneath the play, and you can also have a look at some of the scenes performed by both the professional and amateur actors that were taken in the movie that was made. And you can click on that, and those are YouTube movies. So there's 2 quite big scenes there that help people like educators, teachers, and whoever, to actually portray that, and they can use the material any way they like. Now, going on from there, we also introduced classroom care comics. Well, that's one of the scenes playing. You could hear a nurse doing her head in about somebody appearing unannounced. So going back to the rest of it, the classroom care comics is a way of getting young people to immediately focus on something that, well, for instance, when you say to somebody, well, today we're going to talk about the elders, and everybody yawns, but not with comics. You hand them out, and all of a sudden there's something that's very visual. It's got very small amounts of writing on, which you can read, and it's a very quick introduction into what can happen and what it means in terms of abuse. And at the moment there's 3, and these are done in other parts of the world for WISE, and the sponsors commission them to do it for us. So that's really where we are at the moment with the Learning Centre, but it's growing all the time.
Sounds extremely interesting in terms of getting the kids to engage in a comic strip, but with a serious meaning.
Well, also the police use them as well when they're talking about community safety, so they're very useful.
Most definitely. So now we're going to move on to one of my favorites as well, poetry, your poems. So how does the poetry help the elderly?
Well, I suppose if we let it in and we embrace it, it helps us to empathize with each other in particular. And it becomes a counsellor, helping us to understand all the people around us because everybody's so complex. And it starts to lead us away from hate to love, and from violence to mercy and pity. And it helps, I believe, to stop people going into a violent vocabulary, and it cools things down. But moreover, it actually reflects quite a variety of different mindfulness. For instance, one of the poets that was shown originally, called Kusum Shukla from India, bearing in mind we get people from all over the world who submit work. And the first line, the first verse of the first poem in the first book we did is called The Divine Flute. And the word divine, as it resonates. And the way she puts the words together is worth a look. If you look at nothing else in any of them, that's worth it. But go on from there, and eclectically, completely different, is a young man called Jason Smith, who wrote a number of poems in prison. He went very wayward as a young man. He had very few breaks. He got it entirely wrong, and he was incarcerated. He was in prison. But he wrote poetry, very moving stuff too. And when he was released, he realized that this gift he'd found in prison was of value to the people who may well make the same mistakes as himself. And he now goes across the country and gives talks and lectures on the worst things that can happen to you if you get it wrong, and the best things if you don't. And he's very well revered now, and he's sort of a mature man. And whilst we all perhaps have something in our lives we may regret, he certainly has, but he's made it up in bucket loads. So this particular one, which is absolutely beautifully put together, it's called Hard Man. And it's the way young people consider themselves, "Oh, I'm rock hard, lad." And how pathetic that actually is. And he puts it in a beautiful way. That's with it. But also we've got Dee Russell here, Dee Russell Thomas, and she wrote a poem called "Me Bus Passes Past Its Sell-by Date," which always makes me laugh. But it's also got a huge amount of pathos that writhes through that poem. And they're all very sort of engaging. So each and every poem has a sort of a dialogue of its own and a connection of its own. So I think those again give a new indication of how the elders not only soak in like a sponge the beauty of life, but also are capable of giving it back. So it's you just got to squeeze it a bit to find it. There we go. So
Fascinating, and there is some beautiful poems. It grows every year, doesn't it, James?
well, each year there's a new annual, and we try not to publish the same. Well, we haven't published the same poetry, always new poetry, and we always like to bring at least 50% new poets in. And this year we've got, I think, about 4 or 5 professional poets, one of which, who is a humorist, hysterically funny. And I thought this should go in. I spoke to Bob, and I then spoke to his agents, and then ultimately to his publishers, who wrote me a letter of permission to choose some poems and to publish them into the Wise annual poetry compilation. So that's just typical of what happens. But again, there's so many different poetry is, people just think it's you know, a host of golden daffodils. It's much more than that. It actually resonates in the minds of pretty well everybody, even somebody in prison. So hey, watch this
Yeah.
space.
There's lots of reading and lots of fantastic people with very, very good, fantastic talent. Moving on to Starwise. Explain the reason behind the Starwise, James.
Well, I know that when I was a kid, I used to go into the Sandonia and pay threepence to see films on a Saturday afternoon. It gives me away a bit, that threepence, doesn't it? And that was a time when films like Gone with the Wind and you know, the big movies like that. And I found they were educational, but they also did something else. They taught me how people behaved when they became adults. And I thought, oh, well, I'm looking forward to this. But in actual fact, there is a big problem when people become famous. They become owned by the public. The public, particularly now with social media, they can kill people off quite comfortably by becoming famous for what they do. So there's a saying, be careful what you wish for. The X Factor syndrome. What happened to all the other thousands that wanted to be famous? That worries me. So this is a way of adding a slight dimension to the website to say these people, these public figures, these great big names, the people we idolize, the James Bonds of this world, are as vulnerable as the rest of us. So don't get carried away. It's just a movie. And I remember an article when Sean Connery was approached by somebody who ran across a golf course to where he was playing and said, James Bond, 007. And he said, no, that's not me. I'm just an actor. And that said it all. In that, but if we look at that now, if we go back to more on the website, he's actually in Starwise. And on the first page, of course, I was fascinated by Doris Day because she was in with Frank Sinatra in the film we talked about earlier. And Starwise has her as a front page, and it actually makes a claim. It tells everybody everything when she makes this quote, which I publish in this, and it's any girl can look glamorous. Just stand there and look stupid. And in a way, that sort of neutralizes this glamorization expectation of somebody who wants to, you know, to be like her, do like her, emulate her, because it's a job. And it goes on. There is quite a serious one. I mean, think I mentioned Sean Connery earlier. He had a dementia towards the end of his life, and his wife publicly exposed the fact that the last year or so was absolutely dreadful for him. And I think that's a wake-up call for us all when we think about what we do with the time that we're given. Even Elvis, for instance, had nervous cramps before he went on any stage. And right at the end of the Starwise is quite a long story about Robin Williams. And there is a movie online on YouTube, if anybody cares to watch it for an hour. I didn't. I scooted to the end because it was getting me. It was really worrying me. And what is quoted in this particular article that I've put in the Starwise is, if you're depressed, reach out to somebody, and remember, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Now, that will resonate with somebody like you because you deal with mental health in your daily life. And of course, we're all very concerned about it. But here is a guy It was absolutely multi-talented, a worldwide phenomenon, an absolutely super actor, comic, so many different things. But he unfortunately realized too late, or they didn't realize it at all, before he committed suicide with Lewy body dementia. And that's so easy to confuse for diagnosis, and that there's no known cure for it. So it was a sort of death threat anyway, but it led him an absolute terrible life towards the end of his life, and his poor wife had to deal with all that. So it's just a mention again of not forgetting the reality behind people who perform. It's a huge cost to people. They have to give an awful lot up to be able to be that figure. And it can actually take its toll on your body and your mind. So that's what it's all about.
And it's certainly across, you know, every kind of society, it's looking for body language as well.
You're right.
You know, and really being observant, and the active listening is paramount. So do you spotlight other organizations in the elderly issues? You know, there's I've seen there's an hourglass on there, isn't there?
Well, hourglass is a wonderful indicator of time running out.
Right.
And if you go on to, again, if you look at the I'm just going back to the home site. If you have a look at Hourglass, we are Hourglass on there. It takes you to the organization, and it uses the acronym OATH. Older age is tomorrow's hope. And I hope there is a tomorrow for us elderly people, but they hope for a safer aging society by 2050. And I think that's an amazing ideology. And they've got all sorts of ways that they're proposing to do about it. And it's one of the first websites, organizations, that where their manifesto actually parallels what we want. And I want to be able to reciprocate and help them do certain things and vice versa. That's why I put that on. But it's the first of many. But of course, the international page shows all of the world's organizations, and that can take you miles. Is that it? Is that okay?
Why that particular organization?
Well, as I say, it because it's the manifesto that I see hundreds, literally hundreds of organizations that have been well established, just about emerging, or they're in different languages across the world. But this is the first one I feel I want to be able to connect with in a way that parallels our own aspirations.
There's an invitation to contact, you know, if families are worried about relatives. So in care homes and whatnot. So how do we contact WISE?
Well, there are two ways actually. The first one is on the homepage. There's a little green circle at the bottom, a little green button with a white spoken word indicator on it, a little balloon. And if you click on that, it'll open up. And what it does, it gives you, it says, tell us what how we can help you, and we'll get back to you. And you just put your name, your email, and say, I need help to do something, send it, and it comes straight to WISE. I will pick that up. If I can't help, I know, there's somebody in the organization that can, but we'll respond to it very quickly. But the other way, of course, is if you scroll down to the bottom, it tells you specifically on the home page. If you're worried about somebody in a nursing home or a care home, we'll always help you, happy to help you resolve it. And when you actually click contact us here, the little green button, it takes you to a form on Migrant, which is our partner website, and you actually fill it in there, tell me all about it. But I pick that up personally. When that's submitted, I respond to what if they tell me the care home they've got a problem with, I know where to find the owners of that organization and who the key people are, and the person responsible for the quality of care. I will talk to them. And when somebody from Wise rings them, they never not pick up the phone. And it only takes a few seconds to tip them off, if you like, to say, look, buddy, you've got a problem and you better sort it, or else you've got a war on your hands. And they do. It doesn't happen that often, but it's about a dozen or more over the last 3 years that it's happened.
And what about the sponsors of the website, James?
Well, no, then I think you're finding out. You're going to ask the question: how do we fund everything? Am I reading your mind?
You certainly are. Yeah, just interesting to know how, and I'm sure the audience is.
Well, the
How
fact
this
is,
wonderful website keeps going, and is it free? There's a lot of things there. There's this, there's the poetry, there's the Migram, the e-learning picks, the wise
yeah.
words. Putting a gift on for someone, one of your elders, with their favorite song. So it's about how do you fund it?
Well, there is no fee. There are no subscriptions. We don't ask for anything from anybody. The reverse applies because most of the websites I go on do that. They want a subscription. They want you to please donate here. And whilst that is a necessary source for most people, I think in our case, we don't want to do that. We want it as a gift. In fact, the poetry annual, when it's published, it goes out across the world as a Christmas gift. It's published at the end of November, and lots of people have asked me already, when's it coming out? So it tells you that it's great, it's getting a sort of bow wave behind, in front of it. So we don't charge at all. The sponsorship, the costs of things like commissioning comics from the Far East by people who are they've got very little income, and they subsidise that low income by doing things online, and we commission them to do comics. We commission them to do all sorts of things, and we pay them out. And we do it because it's in our whole mindset to be able to get people to trust that there are people out there that actually do care. It's not about money. Tom Wilkinson was right. It isn't about money. It's about getting it right and getting it right for as many people as you can. In fact, there's a little quote by Robin Williams, which is a Buddhist prophecy. It's called the Buddhist gift. And the Buddhist gift is to remember that none of us have anything except what we stand up in when we're in the shower. And that's all we've got. And that won't last forever. So it's self-deceptive if you think you've got any more than that. And that was Robin Williams' wish, that everybody understood that. So the fact is that the cost and the charge for the service is very much down to care quality ecosystems, which was started in 2015 as a research project at the Innovation Centre at Skytech in Daresbury. And its key responsibility was to find a way of understanding why abuse in care homes and residential homes could happen in spite of the huge safeguarding protection routines and regulations that exist. And I'm fortunate in having right next to me is the guy in the rugby sweater who's actually the chief exec of the sponsors, which is Care Quality Ecosystems. And I think because I'm starting to go hoarse, I'm going to ask him how he feels that the sponsorship supports and resonates with the objectives of the World Institute. So thank you, Harold. I'm going to give you the last word.
We're all sharing the same things, really. I've got an elderly wife. I take her to hospital a lot of the time. I find that there are two types of people that we meet. So there's people who don't seem to care. We're kind of a job that they've got to sort of do something with and tick off the sheet. And then there's people who really care, who empathize, who listen, and who are constructive. And James had a problem years and years ago in a care home, and he asked me to have a look at it. And I found a way of discovering people who care, because you don't want the others. And if you can actually load your organization with people who care, then most of the problems are solved. The other bit's leadership. You somehow want to combine them so they become a team and they take a pride in what they do. And that makes everybody happy. And when you've got happy carers, you've got happy residents. So that's what we do. We want to make that happen in care homes all over the country, if not the world. But it's so much in tune with what you're doing that we feel that we're kind of, it's almost like we're married. We're all trying to do the same thing. And we'd like to help in any way we can, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Al. That's excellent. Thank you, mate.
And it's just brilliant that we, that we have all come together with the Global Goodwill Ambassador Young at Heart campaign. It's been going on now for quite a few years now, James, hasn't it?
I think I can't remember when it started, to be honest, but that's an age problem.
It's been quite a few years. So I think I have tired James out, and thank you, Harold, as well, for your really insightful comments and engaging at the end.
Time up. We could go on forever. It's a never-ending story, and I'm glad we're doing a tiny little bit to influence change in the world. Thanks, Hal. Thanks, Carole. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll be publishing what we got in the coming weeks. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Meeting.